Good morning, and thank you for joining us at the USHCC's discussion about Puerto Rico and the road to recovery. Angelique Sina is the Executive Director of Friends of Puerto Rico, a nonprofit whose mission is to invest in Puerto Rican communities, foster economic sustainability, and promote self-sufficiency through art, cultural, and educational exchange. She is also a shining example of DC's leadership, a former global relationship manager at the World Bank, and currently commissioner for the Latino community in the DC Mayor's office. Also, a recipient of several notable awards, including a Changemaker awarded to her by the United States of Women in 2017, and one of last year's Forbes 30 Under 30. Welcome, Angelique Sina. Angelique, in your role as the Executive Director of Friends of Puerto Rico, you have demonstrated incredible leadership for the Puerto Rican community here in the United States and beyond. Now, Friends of Puerto Rico is a fairly new nonprofit. I think you were established in 2015 with the intent of serving as a bridge between the Puerto Rican community and the greater community, not only in the United States, but all over the world. And you use education and cultural exchange as a way to do that. Tell us a little bit about kind of your role and how the role of Friends of Puerto Rico has changed perhaps during or after the hurricane in Puerto Rico, Hurricane Maria.
Javier, first, thank you for having me at the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Our pleasure.
I truly admire what you're doing for the Hispanic community nationwide. So yes, we began before the hurricane. Mm-hmm. We started in 2015 because we wanted to serve as a platform for philanthropy and mm-hmm. invest in the communities mm-hmm. that support the arts, education, and entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when it comes now, looking backwards, I don't want to say that we necessarily changed, but we adapted because we needed.
Good
and
way, yeah.
In the last 3 months, we've served mostly, providing relief, because right now that's the mm-hmm. immediate need. Mm-hmm. People don't have power mm-hmm. or access to clean water. Mm-hmm. But also we have strengthened these pillars mm-hmm. and we have been able to reach a broader audience, mm-hmm. such as members from our donors network that mm-hmm. are even more interested in Puerto Rico. And we believe that when there's crisis, there's opportunity. And the opportunity that we now look forward to mm-hmm. is to strengthening the base of Puerto Rico.
Well, I can
and
see
its
why
economy.
I can see why you're one of Forbes 30 Under 30. It's very interesting that you said that really the organization hasn't changed. It's really more about adapting. And I think yes. the same could be said of the Puerto Rican people. I don't think the spirit and the love and really, the attitude of the Puerto Rican people, that hasn't changed, but it's had to adapt during a very, very difficult period. So it's very interesting that you kind of put it in that perspective. We are hearing about the many challenges that Puerto Ricans on the island have been facing over the last few months, from poor electrical power and communications infrastructure, and especially in the western part of the island, all the way to the lack of potable water. What are the most pressing challenges, in your opinion, that are being faced right now by the people of Puerto Rico on the island?
Javier, yes, we are facing many, many challenges after Hurricane Maria, but primarily I think the most pressing and depressing subject mm-hmm. is power. Mm-hmm. We live in a world that we're used to turning the light switch and getting lights on, having a phone that works. But when you don't have electricity for 3 months and you don't have water, because Puerto Rico is an island, the topography, the location, most homes are on a hill or in a very mountainous region, so they depend on electricity to get water. So that is a ripple effect. And I think that is by far the most challenging issue we're having. That, and also the growth of the economy, which has been an issue for the last 10 years. One thing to think about that's interesting is that in the mainland we have the poles are underground, mm-hmm. and in Puerto Rico they're on top of the ground. So that is the worst thing you can have when you're in a region that You have tropical storms, you have hurricanes, so you're more exposed.
There are right now estimates that anything from 280,000 to 300,000 Puerto Ricans that have left the island and relocated, predominantly we're hearing, to the state of Florida. What, in your opinion, what are the most pressing challenges being faced by those Puerto Ricans who have been displaced and are now on the mainland?
That is a great question, and that's something that I think is being asked nationwide. Many people from Puerto Rico have had to leave, and I think the most challenging part, there's two things I think are the most important ones, the most challenging ones. Language and cultural adapting to a new culture. We think, you see me speaking fluent English right now, but that is truly based on, even though English is our second language, where did you go to school? What was your the individual quality education you received?
Okay.
And imagine you've lost it all. You pick up the very few things that you have left. Some people say they don't have clothes, others they don't have a laptop. You grab what you have, you move, you take a flight to Florida, which is the closest one, and you begin again in a land that, in a place that even though you feel it's home, because in some ways it's very similar, but you're renting an apartment that you probably can't afford if you're able to get a job that is minimum wage. You don't know the language because there's still, words and things that we don't know very well. And you need to deal with things like renter's insurance, that it's something not common for us. So that adaptation and the language barrier, I think, can be the most challenging part of the new Puerto Ricans now on the mainland.
I can imagine everything from getting a library card for your kids to getting a license for yourself to be able to drive. Never mind the fact that you've got to go get the automobile to drive in the first place. So I can imagine that language would be an amazing challenge.
Yes.
It was amazing to me when all of this transpired to find out how very few Americans knew that Puerto Ricans are actually American citizens. There are, in fact, actually more U.S. citizens living in Puerto Rico than there are in 21 of the states in the mainland. And when I talk about that in front of audiences or the media, I see the look of shock and awe in people's faces when they realize that 3.5 million Americans are actually living in Puerto Rico. What can the average American do to help their fellow Americans who are stuck in Puerto Rico right now? In your opinion, what can we do as average American citizens to help our fellow Americans that are on the island?
I love that question because for us as an organization, many people, thousands of people have reached out. What can I do to help? And I want to start by saying, reach out in empathy. Reach out to an organization like us, Friends of Puerto Rico. Reach out to an organization like you, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. You have a presence in Puerto Rico. You have many members that are from Puerto Rico. You know what's happening. So reaching out and offering for help, to help, I think is essential. Also, invest your dollars. $1, $2 will be invested. It could save a child from not having a warm meal that he hasn't had in 3 months. It could also help with the long-term recovery. And doing something as trivial, and this is going to be very trivial, but I do need to mention it, is go to Facebook and post about it. Share about what's happening to your community, to your friends, to your network.
Kind of get the word out,
Yes. And to raise awareness. But also funds are raised through Facebook. We raise a lot of funds through Facebook. So all those are 3 very simple things that you can do.
Just to kind of keep the challenge top of mind, because in our current society, things are forgotten so easily and so quickly. It's amazing you made the point about us having a presence in Puerto Rico. In fact, one of our largest member associations is actually in Puerto Rico. And we have prolific former leaders and members of our board, like Mr. Elliot Rivera, who is a resident and native of Puerto Rico. Our former chairman of the board, Ignacio Veloz, an amazing leader in our own organization, was born and bred and is to this day a resident and a business owner on the island of Puerto Rico. So the United States Hispanic Chamber has many ties to Puerto Rico, and obviously it's a real honor and pleasure to collaborate with you to try to keep this A, top of mind, and B, to ensure that the American people recognize that those are fellow American citizens. They're part of our community. We need to continue to keep helping them. Yes. You know, as a business association, with really a large membership of Hispanic businesses and local chambers, in fact, we have 200 local chambers all over this country, including in Puerto Rico. We represent over 4.4 million Hispanic-owned firms all over this country. What can business owners specifically do to support Puerto Ricans, not only who are still on the mainland, but more importantly perhaps those that have been displaced and are on the mainland now? Can you offer any thoughts, any advice to a local business owner that may be watching in terms of what they can do to help a displaced Puerto Rican?
That's wonderful. You know, I'm a believer that Hispanic business owners are the backbone of our economy, right? we first of all, we are innovative. I like to believe we work harder. But what better than the Hispanic business owners from the mainland going to Puerto Rico to help? You know, it could be investing in an electricity project. It could be investing in a water project, maybe adopt a community, but also offering expertise. What better than us here that can go back and work with organizations like Grupo Guayacán, which we recently sponsored, and we're providing seed funding for these entrepreneurs that have been working on a project. The hurricane hit, and now they're thinking, I'm not going to get that funding from the local bank. But no, there are Hispanic business owners that can come in and write a small check, a large check, but also mentor them and tell them, this is how I learned from this.
Great idea.
So I think I see it as an opportunity for Hispanic business owners and your members.
To step up, absolutely. Great counsel, great counsel. In October, Congress approved a $36.5 billion disaster aid package for Puerto Rico, for wildfires and hurricane relief for Puerto Rico, for the U.S. Virgin Islands, for Texas and Florida. Despite this aid, and many on the island that still lack basic necessities such as, again, electricity and access to clean water, Governor Rosselló has stated that Puerto Rico needs more like $95 billion to rebuild. But no additional aid package is being seriously considered in our Congress. From your perspective, what does the road to recovery look like in Puerto Rico in real terms? And then maybe a little bit about, kind of from your perspective, what it should look like, because there's a vast difference between what we're hearing the people on the mainland say is possible, and what we're hearing, including Governor Rosselló, the people on the island saying is needed. And maybe you can share with us a little bit about what you think the reality of this recovery looks like.
So everybody's asking about the recovery, right? In my personal opinion, I think the recovery right now, part of it is still relief because of what we talked about earlier, not having power or access to water. That seems to be a problem. That doesn't let the business owners operate. If they do have a generator, but they, the upkeep of the generator can be something that can be hurtful to you as a business owner. The road to recovery really will be a collective effort, and I see a blend of community organizations, the private sector, and the government working collectively to find these solutions, because this was unprecedented, and that's why the package wasn't maybe what we needed. We didn't get the $95 billion that we do need. So it will entail for us to work together to find innovative solutions, but also to bring in experts from all over the world that can help us truly rebuild Puerto Rico. And that's what we strive for as an organization, is to, if a community was destroyed, let's build it better, let's build it stronger.
And really modernize it to the standard that makes sense, that makes sense. Angelique, as an association that represents 200 local chambers throughout the country and in Puerto Rico, as well as an association that represents the interests of 4.4 million Hispanic-owned firms, but importantly is funded by over 270 major American corporations. We were very proud to see our corporate friends stepping up to the challenge when it came to Puerto Rico. American Airlines, by way of example, flew people and equipment back and forth between the island and the mainland at no charge. BP provided over 400,000 gallons of fuel for the island. Goya provided over 1 million pounds of food for the people on the island. Verizon invested over $4 million toward relief efforts on the island, and the list goes on. We were very proud of the accountability and really the decency that was illustrated by our corporate friends. Can you share with me a little bit about your thoughts around this notion of corporations stepping in sometimes in the lack or in the void that exists when our own federal government maybe has not done enough? We as an association are very happy, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about, corporations really kind of stepping up and stepping in to help the people of Puerto Rico.
Well, I'll start by congratulating these members because what they did was amazing, and there's so much need that I'm only grateful to see corporations like that stepping in and for fellow Americans. I believe that, well, first of all, I'll second that the highest poverty rate of all the United States is Puerto Rico. Before the hurricane, youth lived at 58% of the youth was in poverty. So now it's even worse. We don't have the data. But seeing corporations like American Airlines, Verizon, BP stepping in for our island makes me feel that there's hope. They know the importance of helping, a U.S. territory, and also stepping in because a lot of their employees are from the island, and maybe the next generation will be their future interns or employees.
Sure.
So to see them supporting the cause is something that it makes me truly happy, and I hope that more corporations can continue to do this.
And follow the lead of these organizations. Fantastic. Angelique, thank you for making time for this. Congratulations
Gracias.
on the amazing work you're doing. The people of Puerto Rico are proud of you, as are we. Thanks for making time.
Gracias, Javier.